Very first podcast I did with this beautiful man here, one of the biggest responses I got to the thing that I said is I said to him, I'm in love. Now, most people hear that as oh, that's cool. Who with?
With who? Mm-hmm.
I said, no, I'm in love.
Mm.
That's different.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think I got more DMs on any podcast than I did from that of like, wow, like that hit hard.
Mm-hmm.
So what I hope you get from this is that I just introduce you to being in love. Not as something you do, not as a practice, oh, I have to love myself. No, you're just in love. But you weren't. You were in, I know this sounds hard, but you were in a degree of hate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that feels very, that reframe feels very expansive in my heart.
Yeah.
My whole heart felt like it just opened as everything continued to relax more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
And being, and to reflect on what you said, being in love, and this is something that came to me as an idea recently of, because I'm 35 and my body is changing, and it's the first time I'm really experiencing that in my life. And, I haven't been in a battle with it, but it's something that I've been noticing. And one thing that I wanted to commit with myself is like being in love with 35, being in love with what it looks like to be 36 and 40 and 60.
Mm-hmm.
And, doing my best to not want to change that. And to like really just what you said, just be in love.
Yeah, well, for the first time in your life, you now actually have a shot at doing that.
Yeah. Mm. And I think that as a woman in the world, that's a really revolutionary act.
It's massive. That's why I said at the beginning, the difference you'll be making for women who are playing the game, maybe in different iterations, but there's a lot of focus on appearance for sure.
Mm-hmm. Will
be looking at themselves now and going, holy shit, like I have actually at the deepest level been hating myself.
Mm-hmm.
That is not an aspect of love.
Yeah.
And yet on the surface, the masquerade, the facade is, oh, I'm so loving. You gave that woman love, not realizing actually what you were getting.
Yeah.
Was, oh, I might not be in love myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what a beautiful act of service to not reify and make real all of those ideas and constructs that put you at war against yourself, but instead recognize yourself as a unique perspective in a field of loving awareness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that your incarnation, as well as your awareness, is in a constant state of evolution.
Yeah.
And it's evolving through age, through time, through experience. But every iteration and evolution of that unique perspective is still actually always abiding in the field of loving awareness, which collectively in totality, which we all share in a holistic sense, is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
This world, if anything is perfect, the whole world itself, the whole cosmos itself must be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It is. If it can't be better than, it can't be like, this is the fucked up cosmos. I mean, that's a real shit way to live, is that we're in an imperfect cosmos, but it has to be perfect because then you're participating in the whole of everything. In the whole of everything, it either is love or it isn't. And so it goes and speaks to the whole worldview about the whole universe itself.
Yeah. And in the same way, it's like the mirror of how empowered do you feel to see your own war within yourself or the struggle within as directly mirrored to what you see outside of yourself, and like the heroic thing to do is this.
This is
and
the
it's the thing
one.
I'm the most empowered to do, and then to through the process to be able to share it, and and that feels really, really good.
And beyond share it, your presence is enough, is an expression I use, when you embody that frequency. People feel it. There's someone who's become friends recently of mine who I actually haven't spent much time with her, but I've spoken to her husband a lot, and they're a beautiful couple, older. And she's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. And because she's not done anything.
Mm-hmm.
And she's okay with that. And there's a peace about her that's palpable. Now, we could argue genetically, I think she modeled maybe when she was a little younger, so she's got good features and long gray hair, and just is, to Aubrey's point, the embodiment of love of whatever stage her humanity's at.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to see like these cameras that now obviously have higher technology and different, but before there's the light and then there's the film, like especially in a motion picture that is scrolling before the light that projects onto the screen. And so the light throws our life out there for us to see, for others to see. But there's a constant flux. It's never the same. Even like now in this hour and bit we've been chatting, our bodies are literally different by virtue of cells dying, autophagy, new cells being born, right?
Yeah.
Which is a weird thought for most people. Like
Tear
we
ducts
think
being drained.
I feel it.
right.
I feel it. My whole body feels so wildly different.
Okay, good. Yeah, because you're definitely a little person. So like as you saw when I work with someone, the degree to which our energetic signature of trauma and hatred can manifest physically, that woman's retina that actually comes off her eye because she's so desperately trying to figure out the future. Yeah, your heart expansion, your body now will literally be receiving different like signatures of how to show up based on the frequency you're adopting. That's why I said it will be actually effortless for you to try what you were trying to do before in terms of your beauty and your appearance will now just be a natural byproduct to the fact that you're all embracing, all accepting. So when we understand that analogy, like the film that is constantly scrolling in a motion picture is the essence of who we are as humans, but the one consistent is the light that doesn't change. And we could argue that, without sounding too poetic, the one consistent is love. And that who I think I am, who I misidentify myself with is simply the scroll, the narrative, the story that is my lifeline, but is never, ever the same at any given moment. But if I'm in love, then all aspects are okay.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
Not too big.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
It's so cool. And I mean, I know what it is to struggle as a woman and just to feel potentially how impactful this could be for so many women is like, makes me really happy to bear it all.
And even more so, like the timeline that now you just evolved to, the Vi that was trying to help other women was in her own war with herself. Not saying you didn't have impact, but it was at some level manipulative and inauthentic. Not intended, so there's no guilt or shame. But now you step to a different timeline because you adopt a different frequency, which actually can make that difference that you were trying to do from a place that you couldn't. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you shared with me, and I forget which one, first or second podcast, but you said the world doesn't need anything from you, Aubrey, except for you to be Aubrey.
Yeah.
The world doesn't need anything. And that really landed, and it's been reiterated in my own journeys whenever I ask, like, it's, don't worry about what you do. What you do will be a natural product of who you be. And when I get to be myself, things flow easily. Magnetically, I attract the people and the situations and the ideas that come through, and it's a joy. And I think part of that deep confidence, that I have in myself, that's been in evolution, of course, is why, like, people ask me, like, how are you feeling? You nervous about this Fit for Service or this thing? Is it stressful? Or I know you must be exhausted. I'm like, no, not really.
Just go up there and crush it.
Yeah, it's just because my being is what actually transmits. And sometimes, when my being is the higher the state of my being, the more Aubrey I am, the more effortless and magical and beautiful that product of Aubrey-ness is. So like all of the energy focusing on waking up and like really stepping into the fullness of Aubrey, which I've given, the name Dragonheart as like the that's the me that's the very best. And it's not that the other parts aren't as good, but it's just that's me in the full Aubrey-ness. That's like without any of the limiting beliefs, without any of that. Like Dragonheart, when Dragonheart just exists, the world is magical and amazing things happen. And I'm abiding in the truth, actually, the fucking truth. It's like I'm living out of the lie. All the prisons are fucking lies. So I'm living in the truth, like the realness. Like Dragonheart is real. Everything else is a fucking fiction. It's all Maya, illusion. But that fullness of, all right, here I am. That place where the demon and the Buddha touch, the fullness of self. And that's been, a big part of the evolution in the years since we've known each other, is deeper and deeper contact with that aspect of myself. And it doesn't mean that I don't slip into other patterns and lose sight of that, and sometimes need to be reminded. And you've been there to remind me, like, hey, you sad sack over here with your little pity party. Hey, Dragonheart, you in there, buddy? Like, no. Not, but
that's exactly how I say it. He's so good at storytelling. Sad sack.
Say you sad sack
super
over there.
Feminine.
Yeah.
But that's, ultimately, I actually invite that, because in some ways, that's a little bit of the kind of the magic that you have is you are really loving and compassionate, but not coddling. Right. So if Peter was there as my coach, I'd be like, hey, what are you doing there, buddy? What's going on? And it can remind me of the truth that I already know, as I hope to be able to remind you of the truth that you're stepping into now is the absolute unparalleled radiance and beauty of Vailana-ness. The unique Vailana-ness. That's what I'm fucking in love with. That's what I've been in love with since the moment I've been there with you. And the sadness for me is when you can't see it.